Good morning, and I'm Feng Xuran, and this presentation responds to the union's request for independent analysis of vector-com technologies. My central argument is that vector-com is trapped between two failed extremes. Marcus Reynolds produced speed without ethics, while Elizabeth Jensen has produced care without enough decision discipline. The solution is not to turn to toxic leadership and is not to abandon servant leadership. Vectorcom needs accountable servant leadership, which is a model that protects employee dignity while restoring clear authority, constructive challenge plus the innovation and performance. And I will attach the YouTube link when the meeting's recording done. So there are two incomplete models are driving the crisis in the case. The case is not care versus performance. Sustainable performance requires the both. And the case is often presented as a choice between employee welfare and competitive aggression with the two leaders. That is false choice under Marcus. Vector.com technologies achieved rapid growth through long hours, fear, exclusion, and an unhealthy boys club, etc. This created burnout and silence, and it also allowed corruption to grow. Well, on the other side, under Elizabeth leadership, employee voice and flexibility improved, but decisions slowed. Conflict was avoided, and the accountability became unclear. So neither the model is sustainable. Ethical care and execution discipline should be treated as two independent requirements. So Vector.com technologies performs poorly when either one is missing. And throughout this diagnosis also matters to the union because short-term market decline can eventually damage job security, while a return to market-style intensity would damage working conditions. So let's look about the organizations. The organizations keeps reproducing the same leadership circle. These slides show the full circle. First, aggressive growth, as you can see, created prestige and market energy, but also on the other side, overwork, exclusion, and ethical misconduct is also the serious problem in it. Second of all, the whistleblower scandal destroyed the legitimacy of the old leadership. Third, when Elizabeth introduced open forums, flexible work, and all the improvements that Elizabeth's trying to do in the organization. And the fourth, at the fourth, these reforms were implemented as broad consensus and conflict avoidance, producing slower decisions, safer projects, and weaker innovation. Finally, at the last stage is declining the performance created fear. A political coalition connected to the old leadership then began to present authorization decisiveness as the only alternative. If the coup succeeds, the organization may return to the first stage. The key issue is therefore not simply who becomes CEO, it is whether Vector.com technologies changes the organizational systems that keep reproducing this swing between extremes. So I made a chart here and all the references at the bottom of the uh, PowerPoint. Let's look at the servant leadership. The remedy fell through weak decision discipline and another oriented approach and an other oriented approach that prioritize followers' needs, development, and wider stakeholder interest, which is servant leadership, was an appropriate remedy for the scandal. Um, Evan and colleagues define it as the other-oriented approach that prioritizes followers' needs and the development while redirecting leaders away from self-interest. Elizabeth listening forums, flexible arrangements, and professional development are consistent with this approach. Research reviews also associate servant and ethical leadership with trust, commitment, and positive employee outcomes. However, The case does not prove that servant leadership causes low performance. It shows an implementation failure. Listening was treated as a requirement for universal agreement. Support was not paired with clear performance expectations. So at the end, harmony become more important than honest challenge. A servant leader still has a duty to make different decisions while protect the organization's future and explain trade-offs. Serving employees is not the same as avoiding authority. So let me use the three-level model explains why the reform remained fragile. At the visible level, which is the first, as you can see on the PowerPoint, Elizabeth changed artifacts and practices, open forums for flexible work, as I mentioned, and development programs. At the state level, she prompted the inclusion, care, collaboration, but at the deepest level, many employees still appear to believe that success requires heroic hours as used to be like the old ways. So aggressive competition, for example, and some they need a dominant leader. Those assumptions were reinforced by Vector.com's earlier growth and prestige because because they were not openly examined, they survived inside powerful subcultures. When market performance declined, the old assumptions became attractive again. Carter also warns that the challenge is a process rather than a single event, in his theory, and that declaring victory too early allows old practices to return. So technologies, therefore, I think, needs to embed new assumptions through rewards, promotion, such as, and decision routines and leadership behavior, not only through employee-friendly programs like what Elizabeth did. When it comes to leadership, effectiveness also depends on context. The course's contingency and path goal approaches to reject the idea that one style is always the best. Elizabeth should keep an ethical and servant-oriented foundation, but vary her behavior according to the task. Employee development and work design decisions benefit from supportive and participative leadership. Routine operations can be delegated to capable terms. Urgent competitive moves require a named decision owner, a short consultation period, and decisive action. Ethical breaches, harassment, something like that, and unsafe working practice require the firm, transparent, and non-negotiable intervention. This is not inconsistency, it is disciplined adaptation. The leader remains committed to the dignity and fairness while changing how much direction, participation, and challenge the situation requires. So Vector.com Technologies has confused psychological safety with agreement. Edmondson defines psychological safety as a shared belief that it is safe to take interpersonal risk, such as asking questions, admitting errors, or challenging a proposal. It does not mean that every proposal must be accepted or that conflict should disappear. In fact, avoiding debate can reduce learning and high risk. At the same time, Drew and Wingard show that poorly managed task and the relationship conflict can damage performance, according to the investigation and the theory based on 2020. Um, I'm sorry, where did I come to? So I think technology therefore needs structured challenge rather than personal conflict. The coup rumors also show organizational politics, which is a crucial part in the whole process. Uncertainty has weakened Elizabeth's position, while former leaders retain informational and network power. The nostalgic faction is building a collation and controlling the story that only the old culture can restore performance. Management must address the underlying performance concerns transparently instead of suppressing dissent or ignoring the collection. So it right now it comes to my recommendation. My recommended model is accountable servant leadership. The two axes are are the care and execution you can see on here on the screen. Markers occupy the high execution, low care quadrant, a toxic sprint that delivered growth but destroyed trust and ethics. Meanwhile, Elizabeth current implementation sits closer to high care and low execution, a supportive environment without sufficient urgency. So low levels of both would produce organizational drift. The target is the upper right quadrant, where high care is combined with high execution. In practical terms, so leaders listen before deciding, explain decisions, protect employee voice, and invest in development. They also set deadlines, clarify design decision rights, confront underperformance fairly, and hold teams accountable for outcomes are the most efficient, effective way. This important point is that accountability should be firm but not humiliating. The care should be genuine but not permissive. To make this model operational, Vector.com technologies should create three decision lanes. First, ethical and working condition red lines, including corruption, harassment, and unsafe workloads, which these are the main problems appeared before. Required consultation with the union and board oversight, but the standard themselves are not negotiable. Second, reversible market decision should use a 48-hour consultation window followed by a decision outcome. Um, I think from the employees can contribute without creating an unlimited veto. Third, major strategic bets should use cross-functional challenge and stage-gated experiments. Teams should test assumptions with limited resources, review evidence, and then scale, revise, or stop the project. This architecture preserves voice while matching decisions speed to risk. It also separates consultation from final accountability, which is current unclear at Vector.com Technologies company. So for systems sustain ethical performance, reinforcing systems are needed. First is to create psychological safety with disciplined dissent. Use red teams, pre-mortems, and a rule that criticism must address ideas rather than people. So secondly, build organizational ambidexterity. According to O'Reilly and Tushman, argue that firms must exploit existing capabilities while exploring new opportunities. So when it comes to Vector.com technologies, they should protect core operations while funding a small portfolio of high-risk experiments. Third is about use a balanced performance dashboard covering employee well-being, ethical conduct, decision cycle time, innovation learning, and marketing outcomes. This prevents one target, such as growth, from overwhelming every other responsibility. So the last and not least, embed the culture through hiring, promotion, reward, and socialization, which I think in Elizabeth, she really achieved this, but now it's more about combined. Leadership promoted for both results and conduct. The union should monitor workload, retaliation risk, and employee voice, while the board audits ethics and executive accountability. Implementation should occur in three phases. So in the first 90 days, the board, executive team, and the union should publish ethical red lines, map decision rights, investigate retaliation risk, and establish baseline. measures for workload, decision time, and morale. From 3 to 6 months, Vectorcom should pilot the three decision lanes in selected business units, introduce red team reviews, and launch a small innovation portfolio. The company should publish early results and correct problems rather than claiming immediate success. From the 6 to 12 months, at the last stage, it should connect leadership appraisal, promotion, and rewards to the balanced dashboard. Review subcultures and scale only the practices that work. Progress should be measured through faster, reversible decisions, fewer excessive hour breaches, stronger employee voice, more validated experiments, and stable or improving market indicators. So to conclude, in conclusion, Vectorcom in technologies is not doomed to repeat its history, but the cycle will continue if reform depends only on the personality of the CEO. Marcus showed that performance without ethics is destructive. Elizabeth, on the other side, experience shows that care without decision discipline is vulnerable. The organization can break the cycle by institutionalizing accountable servant leadership, which is to protect dignity, make authority visible, encourage discipline challenge, and balance core performance with innovation. For the union, this approach protects working conditions without ignoring the commercial health that supports long-term employment. The final recommendation from me is therefore to retain the ethical foundation of Elizabeth leadership, correct its design weakness, and prevent both a political return to toxic toxicity, and passive acceptance of decline. Thank you for considering my suggestions.